Hi everyone, I'm recording this video near the start of the school year, and I thought it would be helpful to go over three tips I'd always keep in mind when establishing classroom rules at the beginning of the school year. So tip number one is to emphasize social significance. In other words, if our student asks us, so what, why is it important to follow the rule? We want to have an answer. We want to have a so what. We want to have social significance behind all of our classroom rules. A great way to do this is to align your classroom rules with something meaningful within your school. Maybe it's a school mission statement. Maybe it's a school code of conduct. If you're a PBIS school, maybe it's a Pillars of Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports, PBIS. You want to align your classroom rules with something that establishes social significance and addresses that. So what if students ask why they need to follow your classroom rules, school mission statement, school code of conduct, or pillars of PBIS, for example. Tip number two that I always prioritize with teaching classroom rules is to make sure that I am being specific. In behavior, we have something called a stranger test, which means if I have a classroom rule up on my wall and somebody comes into my classroom unfamiliar with me and my classroom expectations, would they be able to understand what that rule looks like in action? Could they follow that classroom rule based on the description of that rule? Okay, what does being respectful look like? What does being responsible look like? A great way to be specific with your classroom rules is using a behavior matrix. If you're not familiar with the behavior matrix, you can find it a lot of different places online. What it really is one column, we have our classroom rules. Maybe it's being respectful, doing your best work, and being responsible. And across the rows, it would say different settings in which those rules are expected to be followed. Okay, maybe it's a cafeteria, hallways, bus ramp, classroom. Okay, and then you can break down what your rules look like across school-based context and situations. So rather than saying, what does it look like to be responsible? We can say, what does it look like to be responsible in the classroom, in the hallway, um, in the cafeteria, on the bus ramp? Okay, at car pickup, on the school bus. And we can really make our classroom rules more specific across settings in which our students are expected to adhere to these classroom rules. So that's number two. Being specific, a behavior matrix is a great way to make these rules more specific. And rule number three is promote shared governance by including your students in the process by which your classroom rules are selected. Including voice and choice among students has been shown to increase engagement and adherence to classroom rules. So how can you include students when you are developing your classroom rules? A couple different ways. Let's say you're working with older students. Maybe you have your students take a look at the school mission statement, the school code of conduct, the pillars of PBIS, and you say, okay, these are our guidelines. Let's develop 3 to 5 classroom rules. With classroom rules, less is more. Let's collaboratively identify 3 to 5 classroom rules that align with our mission statement, positive behavioral interventions and supports, and or our school code of conduct. And you give your students voice and choice in the rule selection process. That's one way to do it. Maybe you're working with younger students, and maybe you're going back to that behavior matrix, and your classroom rules are being respectful, being responsible, and doing your best work. And you tell your young learners, okay, let's talk about it. What does it look like to do your best work in the classroom? Okay, what does it look like to be responsible in the cafeteria? And maybe we talk about picking up after ourselves, saying please and thank you. Raising your hand before you get up to use the restroom. Whatever it is, we're including our young learners or our older learners in the process by which we are identifying our classroom rules and specifying what they look like on a behavior matrix. I hope these three tips help you as you establish classroom rules, and I hope you all have a great start to the school year.